She played the awkward secretary on TV, but off screen, she was secretly dating one of the most powerful women in Hollywood, and no one knew until after her death. Pause for half a beat. This is the story they tried to bury. When Nancy Kulp stepped onto the set of the Beverly Hillbillies as the straight-laced, brainy Miss Jane Hathaway, America saw a comedic sidekick. But behind that poised, brilliant character was a woman fighting to live her truth in a world that wouldn't allow it. Hollywood in the 1950s didn't just discourage authenticity, it crushed it, especially if you were a woman, and especially if you weren't straight. This isn't just a story about Nancy Kulp. It's about the secret lives of women who were forced to hide everything that I even love. She was never supposed to become famous. In fact, Nancy Kulp looked nothing like the starlets of her time. No bombshell curves, no flirtatious smile, just a tall, angular woman with sharp eyes, a deep voice, and a brain that could outwit a room full of studio execs. Born in 1921 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Nancy didn't chase fame. She chased truth. She dove into books, earned a degree in English and French, then topped it off with a master's. While other girls dreamed of being discovered at soda fountains, Nancy studied literature, language, and politics. She wasn't trying to play the game, she was trying to understand how it was rigged. And just when you think she was the type to stay in a library forever, she shocked everyone. In the middle of World War II, Nancy put down her books and enlisted in the US Navy. That's right, she became a lieutenant in the Naval Reserve, one of the few women at the time to do so. While Hollywood was pumping out pinup girls, Nancy was donning a uniform and serving her country like a boss. This wasn't some quirky actress playing dress-up. This was a woman of pure steel, building a life on her own terms in a world that didn't want her to. And it was only after the war, when the bright lights of Hollywood came calling, that Nancy Kulp would become something even more dangerous. A woman in Hollywood who didn't care to please men. Wait, you think that's wild? Just wait until you hear who she was secretly dating behind closed doors. It's a name that'll blow your mind, and no one saw it coming. Keep watching, because what's coming next flips the entire Hollywood fairy tale upside down. To the world, she was Miss Jane Hathaway, the stiff, sharp-witted secretary from the Beverly Hillbillies, the kind of woman who'd correct your grammar with a smirk. She was funny, uptight, and painfully devoted to her boss, but fans loved her for something else. She didn't fit, and that's exactly what made her unforgettable. But what the cameras never showed, and what even her fans didn't know, was that Nancy was hiding something so taboo, so explosive for the time, that it could have destroyed her entire career in a single headline. Nancy Kulp was a woman who loved other women. And in 1960s Hollywood, that wasn't just controversial, it was career suicide. There were whispers, hints, knowing looks from insiders. But Nancy kept her private life locked tighter than a studio vault. No Instagram, no confessions, just coded language, selective interviews, and a perfectly curated public image. But behind the scenes, she was quietly dating one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, a woman so famous, so revered, that their romance would have shattered the industry's illusion of heterosexual glamour. And they weren't just friends, they were lovers. Secret getaways, late-night phone calls, shared books, hidden letters. No one knew, because they couldn't know. And if you think the pressure was just internal, think again. Studios back then had morality clauses. If an actress even hinted at being gay, she'd be dropped, blacklisted, erased. So Nancy smiled for the cameras, while her truth stayed in the shadows. But the secret? It didn't die with her. Because later, after her death, it all came out. Who she dated, where they went, and the whispers that turned into verified confessions. And one name stands out among them all, a Hollywood queen, a film noir legend, and someone who may have shared Nancy's most passionate and dangerous love affair. And that's where things get really wild. Nancy Kulp's biggest secret wasn't that she dated women, it was who she dated. And when the truth came out, quietly, posthumously, it stunned even the most jaded Hollywood historians. Because in the shadows of the 1950s, when studios were still running Hollywood like a dictatorship, Nancy Kulp was allegedly in a passionate, off-the-record relationship with none other than Barbara Stanwyck. Yes, the Barbara Stanwyck, the femme fatale of Double Indemnity, the powerhouse who dominated both film and television, the woman who could command a room with a single stare. And she and Nancy, They were more than just colleagues. According to friends, insiders, and private letters later uncovered, their connection was deep, intense, and completely off limits. They met at industry events, shared late-night conversations, bonded over a mutual love of literature and politics. But as their relationship grew deeper, the stakes got higher. They couldn't be seen alone too often, couldn't touch in public, couldn't even be too friendly without raising eyebrows, so they spoke in code, took secret trips to Palm Springs, hid in remote spots up north, far from paparazzi and gossip columnists. Behind the curtains of Hollywood's glittering facade, they were living a love story that had no place in the spotlight. And what makes this even more tragic, Barbara Stanwyck was just as private, just as guarded. She had divorced actor Robert Taylor in 1952 and never remarried. For years there were rumors but never proof, never confirmation. Until now, Nancy allegedly told a small circle of trusted friends about their relationship in her final years. She called it one of the deepest connections she ever had. Not some fling, not a passing secret, but a love that shaped her and had to be buried to survive. Just imagine that. Loving someone with your entire heart and knowing you can never say their name. Because if you do, everything crumbles. Now here's where things get even more fascinating and more heartbreaking. Barbara Stanwyck wasn't the only woman in Nancy Kulp's secret past. Because back then, in the golden age of cinema, there existed an invisible network of women, brilliant, beautiful, powerful, who loved each other in silence. And Nancy, she was at the center of it. Names whispered behind closed doors, starlets and legends who lived double lives, carefully balancing red carpet smiles with hidden rendezvous behind studio gates. One of those names? Tallulah Bankhead. Known for her wild energy, whiskey-soaked voice, and complete disregard for rules, Tallulah wasn't just a Broadway icon. She was also one of the few actresses who didn't care what people thought. She wore her sexuality like a weapon, even if she had to keep it wrapped in charm and sarcasm. She and Nancy were rumored to be close, very close. The kind of late-night phone calls, weekend getaways, and quiet affection that only meant one thing: they were more than friends. And then there's Marlene Dietrich, the original gender bender, the queen of tuxedos, the German-American icon who sang smoky songs in men's suits and seduced the world, regardless of gender. Nancy and Marlene reportedly shared more than just laughs at parties. They shared secrets. They shared hotel rooms. And maybe, according to a few rare insider accounts, they shared each other. But the most shocking name of all, Joan Crawford. Yes, the icy queen of Mommy Dearest, the woman who built a career on being tough, seductive, and unstoppable. Some say she was also part of this secret web of relationships, one that Nancy navigated with care, fear, and raw desire. This wasn't just gossip, this was survival. Back then, being seen in the wrong place with the wrong person could end your career. The studio heads would blacklist you. The press would ruin you. You could lose everything, not just your fame, but your entire livelihood. So these women formed their own world, a quiet, coded, beautiful world, a world where a glance could mean everything, and where love had to be protected like a crime. Nancy wasn't just an actress. She was a survivor in a war that no one acknowledged was even happening. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize these stories weren't rare, they were everywhere, as just hidden behind the glare of the spotlight, and Nancy Kulp, of all people, left behind clues to prove it. When most actors finish their time on a hit sitcom, they ride the fame, maybe cash in on commercials, sign autographs, coast, not Nancy. After the Beverly Hillbillies ended, she didn't fade into nostalgia, she ran for Congress. You heard that right. In 1984, Nancy Kulp, a queer woman in her 60s, stepped off the Hollywood stage and walked straight into the lion's den of American politics. She ran for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in Pennsylvania's 9th District, a deeply conservative rural area that didn't exactly roll out the rainbow carpet for progressive women. Her platform? Education, environmental reform, and public welfare. No Hollywood glitz, no celebrity vanity, just real policy, the kind that rattled the establishment. And here's where things get intense. Her opponent, a Republican incumbent backed by none other than Ronald Reagan himself, who personally recorded a radio ad slamming Nancy Kulp's campaign. Imagine that. You're an aging actress who gave her life to public service, and now the President of the United States is telling the world not to vote for you. And yet, she stood her ground. With grace, steel, and zero apologies, Nancy debated, campaigned, and stood up for the people. Now, even when the press tried to paint her as a Hollywood outsider who didn't belong, she lost the race. But what she did, it wasn't a loss. It was a warning shot, because in a time when most closeted LGBTQ+ women couldn't even hint at who they were, Nancy Kulp stood up and said, "I'm not hiding anymore." She didn't shout, she didn't make a scene, but she made history, not for winning, but for daring to try. And that's when she made another radical move. She walked away from fame entirely. Stick around, because Nancy Kulp's final chapter is the most raw, revealing, and heartbreaking part of her story. So the next time you watch the Beverly Hillbillies, look closer at Miss Hathaway. Behind that sharp suit and raised eyebrow was a woman living a double life, in love, in silence, and in defiance. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that were never meant to be told.